All right. That 30 seconds, long or short? It felt pretty long, right? What did you do? Did you actually close your eyes? That's dangerous for me. I might fall asleep. Did you really focus on the word pause? We're like, is that actually how that's spelled? I mean, I guess it looks weird though. How many of you just like your brain went out the building? You're like, I got a grocery list I got to make. I got to do this and that, and you have five other things on your list. Anybody do that? And then all the women in the room are like, I did all those things. I multitask. The guys are like, meh. That's right. I get it. I get it. I know. I know. If you asked me on a typical day and I don't think about it, my first inclination to tell you if you ask me how I am, I will say, well, I'm busy. I'm busy. I'll say with a smile on my face, but I say I'm busy. And I don't like that. So I apologize if I've ever said that to you. I don't like it though. I don't think that that's healthy. I don't think that we should walk around with the first thing that comes out of our mouth when someone asks us how we're doing, we say, busy. That's not a healthy thing. That's not a good thing, I don't think. There's this is the series that we're in right now, Bend Don't Break. We're just starting today. And this is kind of a football term. At least that's where my mind goes because I've heard a lot of football coaches tell me that. Where our defense is a bend not break defense. And that means that you're going to give up some plays, but the other team's not going to throw like a 75-yard bomb and like score at a rapid pace on you. You're just going to gradually try to wear them down, and hopefully at the end of the day, you have more points at the end of the day. And that's, I mean, Seahawks, right? That's except for when they're not playing well, then they do score a lot of points. The other team, not us. But we have this bend, don't break mentality, and that's prevalent in our society as well, right? We think about this, that bending is good. It's creating flexibility. It's creating resiliency in our life. The more that we can sustain, the more that we can handle, the stronger we are, the more we're able to actually carry and carry the load, the burden that we have. The tension, though, is that I don't think that we were created to bend and bend and bend and bend, only bending. There's got to be moments where that bending stops and we can right the ship and we can actually catch our breath and we can actually slow down enough to do what we know is important to do. And some of that is not moving. Some of that is just being still again. We were not created for infinite flexibility. That's not who we are. Bending without, when it's just constant bend, 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 bend. Don't break. Don't you dare break, but bend more and more and more. If that's where you're at, I hate to tell you this, you're kind of in the danger zone for some really, really bad things. If we do this without relief, without rest, without peace, without pace in our life, eventually we will break. You're like, no, I'm bending. You will eventually break. And it might not be today, it might not be tomorrow, but eventually it'll break. And it'll break on your relationships, it'll break in your finances, it'll break in your job, it'll break in your relationships around you. The things that you think matter the most to you, it will fracture those as well. So this is a really important topic that we're facing right now. We're going to walk through this next couple weeks. It often feels like this. Surviving, right? We feel like we're just barely surviving, just barely getting by. I just got to survive this moment. But the reality is surviving is not thriving. And what I can tell you is that your heavenly Father that knows you by name, knows every hair on your head, knows everything that you've done, and still loves you. Your heavenly Father wants you to thrive in life, not just survive, not just barely make it. He wants you to be succeeding, doing well in life. I don't know about you. I'm going to say that probably 14 times a day. I'm going to try not to, but I'm going to speak about myself a lot because this is actually personal to me because I feel this tension. I constantly feel like I'm behind. I constantly feel like I'm catching up. I'm always operating at a deficit. When I have a good, full, efficient day, I barely scratch the surface of the list of things that I feel like I need to do. I never feel like I've crossed everything off. I never feel like I'm all the way done. I always feel like there's more. And the moment that I cross one thing off, four more things are added to that list. They're like, that, good job. It takes 1 second for me to just be like, great, and move on. And I got to keep rolling because I got too many things to do. I got too many, irons in the fire. And everything demands something of you. And it's good to have a full life. Absolutely. It's good to have a full life. We're evaluating new year, like what do we want to do with our schedule and what that needs to look like and where our priorities are and where our energy needs to go. And that's good. It's good to have a full life. But also, when we are so, just looking at our life and we're so divided among so many different things, again, just for me, when I'm divided that much, nothing gets my 100%. Everything gets just a little bit. Like I'm functioning at 80% on a good day for most things. And unfortunately, that's 80% husband. That's 80% father. That's 80% pastor. That's 80% friend. That's not good enough. And it's this burden that I carry around. Like, I know I'm not pouring into the things that are most important in my life. I'm not giving it enough. And it's this constant tension when you're working from a deficit every single day, when you know and recognize nothing is getting my best. They're not getting my best. We feel like, maybe this is a word picture that works for you. I feel like on a regular basis that I'm walking a tightrope and there's no end in sight. There's not like I just got to make, this just keeps on going. And the tension that I have is I can't go one way or the other too far or I'll fall, and that'll be the end of it. Everything's going to fall apart if I do that. I just got to consistently, constantly be on point, and I can't veer off. And that is the tension that I just live. Talk to my chiropractor. Like all that tension is right here. It's right there in my back, in my neck. I feel it physically sometimes. Don't we feel that? There's this weight, this stress. I mean, you wake up in the morning and you're like, bam, there's the stress. You're just like, good morning, stress. Like there's no hesitation. It's just there. The worry shows up. You don't have to find it. It just shows up with you. It's like, good morning, here's your coffee, and you're worried. It's just right there every day, all the time, every single morning. And you don't even know why it's there. It's just this thing that follows you around. We say these things, we have this mentality, and I think it's like not realistic, right? We say these things like, well, I just got to keep it together until we got these finish lines that we put in place. Well, I just got to keep everything together until the project is finished. I just got to keep everything together. I got to hold it all together until my son gets out of that stage of life, because it's a busy stage, it's a lot, or that season of sports, whatever that season is. I just got to make it through this season, and then I'll be okay. I just got to hold tight until I graduate from college. I just got to hold tight until I fix that or do that or whatever it might be. I just got to hold things together until my marriage can get put back together, and then we can move on from that. I just got to hold tight until that works out. I got to hold tight until the market settles down. Have you seen it? It's crazy. It's all over the place, up and down, up and down. We just got to wait for calm to happen again financially, and then it's going to be okay. Then I can move forward. I just got to hold tight. Maybe this is too personal. I just got to hold tight until fill in the blank is elected. You're like, oh, then I can relax. If I know that person's in the White House, I'm good. Right now, not so good. Like I don't know who's going to be there, and it terrifies me. And that's a tension that we carry. And there's a lot of people in this room that are on both sides of the aisle, and that's fine. I love that you're here. But we carry that, right? We carry this tension. I just got to make it. I just got to keep it going. I just got to hold everything together until I cross the finish line. And for some of us in this room, you've lived long enough, you've had enough experience that you know. You cross that finish line, and what happens? The finish line moves. Like there's another thing. You're like, there's another thing after that. There's another thing after that. There's never an actual end to the finish line. Any finish line we think that we put in place just gets removed and replaced, removed and replaced. The next thing is right there. And that leads us to a tremendous amount of tension. There's this burden, there's this weight that we just constantly, consistently carry. And we feel something. We feel overwhelmed. I don't know what to be whelmed is, but this is over that. We feel overwhelmed. I learned, maybe I'm late to the game, but I learned this idea, and I think I shared it before. Decision fatigue is an actual thing where you're left, where you have so many decisions to make with high pressure, high priority things in your life, and you get down to the very, very simple thing, and you're like, I have no energy to make that choice. I stand in front of the pantry like, I don't know what cereal to eat right now, and I spend 5 minutes trying to decide what cereal to eat. I'm like, I can't do it. I don't know. Cheerios? I don't know. Am I going to make waffles? What am I going to do? And you just You panic in that moment. You have decision fatigue. Or maybe you're experiencing actual real fatigue in your life. You're just exhausted. You're tired. You're worn out. And we have this amazing, fantastic thing that helps us, right? And it's called technology. And it helps you. I don't know about you. In my life, my brain is not good enough. And so I have my phone. And this is my actual brain. I put everything that I need to remember in this, and then I hope that this one catches up. It's like, I don't know if I'm going to remember that, so I put it in there, and I'll remember to look in there, hopefully. It's amazing. Because if I need to remember on a certain day to do a certain thing, I don't have to rely on this guy. It's in my calendar. Shows up on my watch. It tells me like, oh, I got somewhere to be. The problem with the advantage of technology, that is a huge advantage. There's also a double edge to that sword, because this technology goes with you everywhere you go. And you show up, you go home from work, but work comes home with you, because you get that text, you get that phone call, you get that email. And sometimes you ignore it, but other times you're in the middle of dinner, you're like, yeah, I got to take that. I got to do that. I got to remove myself from this moment that I'm present in and remove myself from that to go take care of this other thing that I should have been done with, that I should have left alone, that I should never walk away from my family. If I'm gonna put it down on the table and be like, let's list it out, what's most important, my family wins every time. And yet, how often are we in that moment, we're like, oh, I got to go take care of that. We walk away from what's most important to the thing that is vibrating on our wrist or in our pocket. How often does technology do that? Removes you from the moment, removes you from home. We have this love-hate relationship with being needed. We love to be needed. It feels great to be needed, that we can offer assistance to other people and help other people out. And yet, it's exhausting to be needed. You're like, but can't you just figure out how to put peanut butter on the bread yourself? Like, you know how to do this. I don't need to stop what I'm doing right now to do that. That sounded pretty specific. That's right. We have these things that happen in life all the time that lead to this idea, this thought, this meme that I saw the other day. I don't know if you can read it. I'll read it for you. Being a mom, and I'm going to put a caveat there, others also, but being a mom is like jumping out of a plane with a bunch of people who don't know how to open their chutes. So you fly around doing it for them, and then you hit the ground. But you don't die, you get up and cook dinner. Anybody else feel overwhelmed? Is that where you're at? Is that where you're at? We all carry these pressures and expectations even. That's where a lot of it comes from. We have expectations. We put expectations on ourselves because we want to succeed. We want to do well. Other people have put expectations on us, and we hear our parents' voice in the back of our head. We're like, yeah, I know I should do the laundry. I know I should do that right now. You're like, oh, thanks, Mom. She's not even in a room. She's in a different state. You're like, but she's talking to you somehow through your history. We have these expectations. We put them on. Other people put them on. But there they are. And these expectations are not bad. I want to be a better husband. I want to be a better father. I want to be better at work. I want to win at finances. That's a good thing. We should all hope that. We should all want. In fact, all of those things, we should all have that expectation that we're going to succeed. We're going to do well in those categories, right? But over time, that tension of nonstop, not putting that load down, just carrying more and more and more, it weighs on us mentally, emotionally. And we eventually get to this point where we decided we just got to do more. We got to do more. We got to do more. If I'm going to succeed at that, I got to do more. I got to fill up my schedule. I know there's 5 minutes I can find in there somewhere, somehow. And we get to this point. Not just overwhelmed, we're also overcommitted. Because we continue to add to our schedule. We continue to add to what we're trying to do. And we live with this consistent FOMO, fear of missing out. Not only for us, but for our kids, if you've experienced this. You're like, that wasn't even around when I was a kid, but I want this for you. I want you to experience that. We didn't even have travel teams when I was growing up, but I want you on a travel team because I wish that for myself. If I had that opportunity, I would have taken it. So we add, and we add, and we add, and we add. We wear the busyness like a badge of honor. It's like it truly is like a status symbol to some of us. And you go back to technology, right? We're overexposed also because we're adding, overcommitting ourselves. We're already exhausted. We're already tired. We're going to cram. We're going to put more things in there. And then we have the devices again, right? And we look at it. We look at social media. And I'm not going to try to bash on social media. I'm going to try not to. But when we look at social media, it tells us what everybody else is doing and they look happy. And I'm not doing that. And I'm not happy. So I guess I got to do more. Or at least I got to pretend that I'm doing more happy. And we stage it. We edit it. We do what everybody else is doing. We project the highest points of our life as if that's every day of our life. And it's a constant weight on us. Not only that, here's another aspect. This is really weird. I was thinking about the other day. The rate at which we receive information, talk about being overexposed, like there's this nonstop stream of information. We have more information at our fingertips than ever before in the history of the world. It's just nonstop information all the time. Think about a few generations back, like their primary news that they actually trusted was the newspaper. And they got it in the morning and they sat down, they drank their coffee, they read the paper, and it was done. That was it. There was no more news the rest of the day. You could wonder about it. You could wonder, I wonder what's happening right now. But typically, you just went to work. You did your thing. You spent time with your family. You did whatever is necessary. Today, you could sit on your phone, iPad, computer, whatever, and the stream of news would be nonstop because it's instantaneous and it's immediate and it's right now. You can find out what's happening on anywhere in the world all the time. There's an unending. You can scroll as fast as your thumb will go, and it will never get to the end. Why? Because it's updated every second, and there's always more and more and more and more and more. Not ideal. Not ideal. Right? So here's the question. What happens if that is the life pace that we're walking out at, that we're living at, that we're moving at? What do you think that does to us? Is it any surprise that right now people are more anxious, more anxiety, more stressed out than ever before? We hear this all the time. Nobody's surprised at that. We're like, that makes a lot of sense. I feel it. Makes a lot of sense. No one's disagreeing with that. No one's arguing that. I mean, you don't even have to have like the statistic up there. You're just like, yeah, that feels right. That feels right. Why? Because inside each and every one of us, we're created with God's DNA in us, and we know that we weren't created to bear that burden, that stress, that weight, that way that we're walking this out. We know it. We know it. This is not what we were meant to do. We were not meant to be. We were not meant for this. And it's constant. It's constant, right? Constant stimulation of like more in, and also constant exertion. More out. And this equates to, there's this term that really smart people are starting to use. It's called ego depletion. It's where you're not just tired physically, you're not just tired emotionally, you're tired entirely. You are depleted. There's nothing left of you. You're a shell. Your soul is empty in this moment. And unsurprisingly, if you get to that point, if you get to that level, unsurprisingly, we're more tired, obviously. We also have way more negative emotions than any other time. Our relationships are less successful. They're less satisfying. Smaller things get into bigger fights for no reason. You're just like, I don't even know why we're here anymore, but I'm angry. Right? There's no reason for it. But there it is. And the challenges, right, whether it's work, whether it's life, whatever it might be, the challenges that we're faced with, we come up with worse solutions. We're like, that's not a good solution. But we fail at it, or the solution we come up with is like, it's good enough for right now, I guess. Just put that out there. Here's this thing. It's really incredible. I learned this. when you get to this level of exhaustion, ego depletion, there's a part of your brain that is tired. There's a part of your brain, it's called the anterior, I'm going to look at this, the anterior cingulate cortex. This is the part of your brain that actually controls your self-control. It monitors it, it helps you with it. And that part of your brain slows down when this is in place. And you find yourself giving in to temptations that you never would have before. You find yourself saying, yeah, that's okay. Yeah, but, yeah, okay. And you make excuses. You go in directions you never thought you would because you're ego depleted. You're done. You're empty. Your soul has no more. It's empty. And that affects your self-control, your willpower as well. So you're walking around, you have a mind, a body, a soul, and all of it's tired and exhausted. So what do we do? If you're like me, you try to come up with a solution. Like, what's going to fix this? We got to fix it somehow. Here's the problem. More sleep won't fix it. Going on another vacation, it's not going to do it. Getting your kids to behave perfectly won't do it. Not a Netflix binge, not going to do it. Filling your shopping cart with Amazon again, I'll return it later, it's fine. That won't do it. Another bottle of wine won't do it. None of those things that we try to reach for and grab for, we're just too exhausted. We're just like, well, whatever, this is going to be my night tonight. Whatever we grab for is not going to fix that. And here's another scary thought. We think of this before, like if I were to talk to you about this, like before this morning, you'd have thought, man, someone that's ego depleted, they've probably been through like a horrible experience. There's probably something that's catastrophic that they've gone through that got them to this level. No, it doesn't have to be that. It doesn't have to be that. It can just be the constant weight of life when we're depleted. We're surviving, we're not thriving. And sometimes it doesn't even really feel like we're surviving very well at all. Thankfully, finally, you're like, okay, I'm getting depressed just listening to you. I get it. I told you, this is personal. There is this moment that we're going to look at this morning in history. It's a moment that Jesus is talking, and he offers an invitation not just to the people he's talking to 2,000 years ago, but also to us today. There's an invitation that you might not even knew that you were invited to, but you desperately need it. It's found in Matthew chapter 11, verse 28 is where we're going to start. Jesus is speaking. He says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." I mean, I could just stare at that and fall asleep and be happy. That's the level I'm at. But this is what Jesus is saying. Come to me. He doesn't say, here's a dangerous thought. He doesn't even say go to church. He doesn't say go to the temple. He doesn't say go somewhere. Go listen to that podcast. Go watch that thing. Go listen to that thing. Go do this. Go do that. He says, no. It's him. Go to Jesus and he will give you rest. Everyone who's weary and burdened. We're like, everybody in the room is like, yep, I can feel that. I can identify with that right now. And I will give you rest. Doesn't that sound amazing? Some of us, let's be honest, some of us in this room, you want nothing more than to take a nap. You're like, oh my goodness, that would be amazing. And part of you is holding it back. You're not allowing yourself to do that because you're embarrassed if someone were to ask you, like, your wife gets home, she's like, did you take a nap today? And you'd be like, oh, no, I didn't do that. No, it was definitely the dog. I didn't take a nap. Because we're embarrassed. I'm 42 years old and I want to take a nap. And I'm like, I need a nap right now. We're embarrassed to say that. We need something like that. But that's the level that we're at. We want that rest that Jesus offers. And the rest that we try to find is not the same level. Some of you, you're like, I got to find 5 minutes just to sit still. I got to stop moving. I mean, there's a little bit about me. If I stop moving, I will be taking a nap. That's like, they're one and the same. It's amazing. Verse 29, Jesus continues on. He says, "Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart." That he is not harsh. He's gentle. He is not impatient with you, he is patient. That he is not frustrated with you, he is empathetic towards you. He understands you. And he offers love. He offers peace. He offers rest. He is overflowing with love and compassion for you. He wants you to thrive. And he himself, he lowers himself, he humbles himself to give us access to him. Now this term yoke, I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's not the egg yolk. It's spelled differently. This is kind of an older, idea, but you have two oxen that are connected by this yoke. This thing that crosses over them connects both of them together, so they're able to actually pull together rather than individually. What's amazing is we think of that, we're like, well, isn't one of them enough? Like in our life, we look at the cows, we're like, yeah, you got it. But when it comes to us, we're like, no, I can get it myself. Don't connect me with somebody else. I'm strong enough. I've got it on my own. My mom told me I can do anything I want, so I'm going to do anything I want. Just add it on. I'll figure it out when we get there. There's this moment in my life where I think I was about 13. I think I was about a freshman in high school, right in there somewhere. And I'd been hunting with my dad, and he'd shot an elk, and we were packing it out. And it was about a mile to the truck, and it's mostly downhill. But I'm 13, so I'm a man now. Dad, I will take more, please. So I have my pack, and I'm like, no, you're an old man. I'm a young gun. I can take more. Let me do it, Dad. So I don't remember exactly. It was either the two front quarters we were, quartering it out, or the one hind quarter. But it was a lot. It was more than I should have been lifting and carrying. I'm like, no, I got it. I've been weight training for football. I'm good. Something you don't know about me, when I was that age, I was less than 100 pounds dripping wet. Like, I was not a big guy. So I know physically now I'm like, I've made it physically. But at that point, not so much. So I have this pack on me, and I'm doing just fine, right? I've got it. Dad, leave me alone. I got it. I'm leading the way. And I'm walking, but being pretty careful because I don't want to trip. And there's logs that go across. I don't know if you've been out in the woods. There's logs. So this tree had fallen down across the trail that we're on, and I have to step over it. Something that you might not be, familiar with. When you're carrying something heavy, especially higher up, your center of gravity is adjusted whether you realize it or not. So I do this. That's all, just to get my foot over the log. And just this puts more weight on the backside of me, and I just go, whoop, all the way. Land on my back, and now here's the embarrassing part. I'm on my back. My dad's behind me. He starts laughing, because why wouldn't you? Secondary injury is I can't get up. I can't even roll over. There's so much weight on my back. I'm not strong enough to sit up for sure. And I can't even roll over to my side to push myself up. Now my dad is crying to the point of tears. And I'm like, God, help me. It was a whole thing. I made it. Don't worry. I made it out. But this is what we do with life. No, add it on. I got it. I'm strong enough. I'm big enough. I know it seems like a lot. I know I'm already hurting. I know that seems like it's probably too much for me. I'll take it anyway. I got it. It needs to happen. This has to happen. I'm going to do it. And then eventually, and it might not be the first day. You might make it quite a while. You might make it several steps. You might make it quite a while in your life. You're like, I've been doing this for seasons. But eventually there's going to come a time in a moment where you're trying to step over a challenge and you're going to find yourself on your back, unable to move. And unless you have people around you to help you up, you're just going to be stuck and powerless, moving closer and closer to brokenness in that moment. An amazing thing, back to this illustration, amazing thing about two animals linked together, there's been studies that actually show it's not like the math equation is not what this one can carry plus what this one can carry. You add it together, that's the total amount of weight. When two are linked up together, they can actually pull more together than they can, adding them together, if that made sense at all. They can pull more together than they can individually added. It's amazing. It's amazing. Also, another piece of this verse, a yoke is a common idiom at this time. I didn't call you a name. It's not. I A joke is never mind. The yoke was a common idiom for a rabbi's teaching, his worldview, how he looked at not just Scripture, but how you apply Scripture into your own life and how you walk that out. So there's a lot of different rabbis walking around, and they each have kind of their own bent on what Scripture means and what that means for them personally, and if you're going to follow them or be their disciple, what that means for you as well. So this is a rabbi's reading, understanding, and application of the Torah, which is the Jewish law, into one's life. So that's what the yoke means. That's kind of what Jesus is alluding to here. Now, the yoke of the law was heavy. It was demanding. It was burdensome. It was difficult. Essentially you're trying to be perfect, knowing you're never going to be perfect. So there's this constant, you're not perfect again. You got to repent, you got to do the thing, you got to pay back in order to get back to square one, and you're constantly not being perfect, and you're constantly having to pay for your imperfection in life, which leads to religious burnout. Not just today, but back then also. It was common. Some of you in here today, you're like, I feel that. I've been through a season where I got burned out from church. I got burned out from religion. In my heart, I hope that you don't experience that here, because this is not about religion. This is not about doing. This is about recognizing who you are, who God is, and the relationship between the two of you. But Jesus offers something entirely different to what was offered at the day. Right? He was offering a different kind of yoke. He says, take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. Again, that's not what other rabbis were offering. They couldn't offer it. It was different. And it's different for us too. We can't find that somewhere else. It is only offered by Jesus. He continues on, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Stark contrast between what Jesus is offering all the other rabbis. The other rabbis, maybe you can feel this as well. The other rabbis are just adding more. How much can you carry? I think we can fit one more on. I think you can do a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. They're trying to see how much you can carry before you break. And that's what we feel in life also. A little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. Can you do this for me? I need you to do that. This is another tension. This is another, more and more and more. That is not what Jesus is offering. He's not demanding that you carry more. He's offering something far different. His new way was not about law keeping. It was not about being perfect with your behavior. His new way was a relationship to connect to Him. A relationship filled with grace. He fulfilled the law's requirements. He paid for us. He walked it out Himself so that we could just rest and relax and focus on the relationship with Him. He paid for it. He carried it. We no longer have to carry the weight of the law that was upon us beforehand. That's what He offers us. And Jesus walked through this world as a man. So if you think life is difficult, Jesus says, yeah, it's difficult. I've been there. I did that. I felt the weight of the world myself because I was a man. I did that also. I can identify with that. I can feel that because I did it too. He understood the weight of life. He felt it Himself. And His invitation is for us to make that weight lighter, for us to be able to move easier through life. We carry things differently when we follow Jesus. We carry things differently. It's not the same. It's not the same. It's different. Now, we talk a lot about following Jesus, following Jesus, following Jesus. There's if you think of Jesus still as the rabbi, the teacher, you sit at His feet. You learn His yoke, how He teaches you to walk through life, the direction, how you navigate different obstacles and challenges, requirements. You learn to move at His pace rather than your own or rather than what everybody else in the world is demanding that you move at. You step in His steps. You step into rest that you've never experienced before. You step into peace that shouldn't be there but is offered to you. You step into grace. You step into love that you've never before experienced to that degree when you choose to be yoked with Jesus. When we decide, I'm going to connect myself to him. I'm going to connect myself with him. The interesting thing about this also, when you first yoke, I learned some things this week, but when you yoke two animals together, typically there's an older, stronger, and a younger, weaker. And the older, stronger one has been there before, has done it before, knows how to do this right. You bring a younger one on so they can learn and be developed, so they can be discipled, so to speak, on how to navigate, how to move through life. The older one, when they're connected, will set the pace. And when the younger one starts falling back and it gets too much for him, the older one, the stronger one, will actually shoulder the weight himself on behalf of the younger one. He can take more on. It's how we learn to move at his pace with him. The amazing thing is that Jesus came not to add things onto us, but to connect with us. He's like, listen, life is heavy. There's things that you can't just get rid of everything. You can't just get rid of the weight of life. But let me carry it with you, side by side with you, alongside you, in relationship with you. Let me connect with you. It's better than any nap you'll ever take. Just come with me. Move with me. Live with me. Learn his ways, his steps, his directions. We go through a couple different yokes. Here's the yoke of the law. Maybe you've heard this before. A lot of church, you feel this. Obey the rules. Don't mess up or else. You've been on the receiving end of the or else sometimes. Right? You've experienced that before. That's not the yoke that Jesus offers. You know, the yoke of the world tells us we need to do more, we need to work more, we need to earn more, we need to, because of all these things, medicate more. We need to keep bending, don't break, just fake it. That's what the world places on you. That's what the world offers to you. And unfortunately, that's what we embrace a lot of the time. Yep, I need to do that. Yep. Put that right on. Just fit it right over my head. I'll take it on the shoulders. We do that. This is the yoke of Jesus. Let me help. Learn my ways. Rest in my grace. You have nothing to prove. Because it's not about what you do, it's about who you are. A son and a daughter of the King. Just walk with me. Jesus says, don't strive alone. You've been walking at your pace with your weight for way too long, and you found yourself exhausted, tired, depleted. What he offers us is something that we might not have even known that we needed, but it's something all of us need. This lifeline, this connection to walk at a different pace than we've been walking at. Jesus would say, you're sprinting, and this is a marathon. Eventually, you're going to run out. You're going to start to run on empty, and that's not good for you. You're going to end up on the side of the road, broken down. Your capacity with me is greater. It's more. And you can move at a different pace, and you realize there's joy. Walking through life with joy. You're like, yeah, my circumstances didn't really change. Yeah. But I have joy. Yeah, that's what's available to you. There's this author, his name is John Mark Comer. He's also a pastor. He said this in a book called Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. People all over the world, outside the church and in, are looking to escape a way out from under the crushing weight to life this side of Eden. But there's no escaping it. The best the world can offer is temporary distraction to delay the inevitable and deny the inescapable. And that's why Jesus doesn't offer us an escape. He offers us something far better. Equipment. He offers his apprentices a whole new way to bear the weight of our humanity with ease at his side. like two oxen in a field, tied shoulder to shoulder, with Jesus doing all the heavy lifting at his pace, slow, unhurried, present to the moment, full of love and joy and peace. Here's the thing, simplify it. Your soul is best when you come to Jesus for rest. Your soul is best when you've decided to come to Jesus for your rest. This is the healthiest version of us, to walk through life the healthiest that we've ever been when we are connected to Jesus. We're not worrying. We're not proving. We're not hurting the same way that we were before. We're given rest and restoration. We're given his strength, his grace, his peace, his promises, his hope, his presence and love. When you're yoked to Jesus, life is different. It's different. We have hope, and the reason why we have hope is because we believe that there was a resurrection that happened. He conquered death, and certainly he will walk through life with us, and that gives us hope. We have the Holy Spirit that lives in us to guide us, to lead us. We have a church community that wants to do life together, to walk through life and encourage one another and challenge one another, to help course correct a little bit, to identify the problem areas and be like, hey, this is a thing. Maybe we should work on it. How do we improve this? Not for more for you to do, but for you to be healthier, to walk through life better, more connected to Jesus. And when you do that, your relationships will improve. So here's the thing. You're going to be yoked to something. You're going to connect yourself to something or someone. Is it going to be Jesus? Is it going to be what you've been doing? How is that working for you? The challenge here, I know. The challenge here, you're like, well, how do I put the yoke on? Does it fit? Like, is there a physical one that I need? Do you sell those out in the lobby? No, we don't do that. But when you put the yoke of Jesus on, you have to submit and surrender to him. That means that you recognize, I'm not the strong bull pulling ahead. I'm deferring to you. I've got to kneel down and humble myself to make sure that you're in charge and I'm not. And that's my commitment. That's my decision. Every single day, you're in charge. I'm not. I'm just going to follow your pace. I'm going to do the thing that you've put in front of me. I'm going to move through life the way that you move through life. I'm going to allow you to navigate. And I'm just going to follow. I'm going to do what you ask me to do. I don't have to worry about balancing act anymore. I just need to follow along with you. When you surrender your life to Jesus, you also surrender the load of your life to Jesus. Now here's the thing. Jesus wants to carry your load, yes. He wants to carry more and shoulder more weight that you're already carrying, yes. But more than that, he just wants a relationship with you. Like, yes, life gets easier. Yes, I mean, still challenging, still hard, but moving at his pace does something internally. And even though it's hard and challenging, it feels like it's less pressure. But the whole goal is not just for us to have less pressure in life, it's to be in relationship with him. That's what he wants. Relationship is more important than anything. And even in your most important relationships, when you think about the weight that we've been carrying, when we think about getting towards and moving closer and closer to the ego depletion, what does that do to your relationships? I can tell you this, you have less margin and they're worse off because of it. When you connect to Jesus, all of a sudden you have more margin, more patience, and your relationships improve. It's amazing. You have more margin for them. Now, something that I've done often, I've often said and prayed, I've even done this in here, God, we just need to lay down our burdens and give them all to you. Which is good. That's good. That's a good thing to do. Also, we can't lay down all our burdens and be carrying nothing, because that's not life. Jesus isn't offering to take all of the weight of life away. He's offering to walk with us through life together. that he can share those burdens with us. We were never created for the weight that we carry. We weren't created this way. That's not what we were for. We weren't created for a bend, don't break. That's not what we were created for. We were created for something more, something better. And Jesus offers it to us. So, as we close up here this morning, I know we went a little bit long, but I do have some discussion questions because we want this conversation to continue rather than just stay in this room. Here's a couple of them. Have you ever carried a heavy load physically, maybe backpacking, maybe packing out an elk? What was that experience like? Did you find a way to make it more bearable? Have you ever had to carry a non-physical burden for a season? How did carrying that burden affect you? And then lastly, what burden that you're currently carrying weighs you down the most right now? What would it look like to allow Jesus to shoulder the weight by taking on his yoke? And we're going to stop right there and continue on with this conversation next week. Let me pray. Dear Heavenly Father, I pray that this morning, right now, that we would identify the burden, the weight, the tension, the pain, the exhaustion, the depletion in our life. And we would also acknowledge the offer on the table, the invitation that you've made for us. If we would come to you, if we would move to you, if we would trust you, if we would lean in your direction, you would start to shoulder some of that with us. And life would get better. It's not that you would remove everything. It's that you show us how to walk through at a better pace with your strength, with your peace, with your courage. And God, I pray that this morning, as we navigate that, as we engage with that, as we wrestle that to the ground, I pray that we would see the next step for ourselves of how we can learn to trust you more. And by trusting you more and moving in your direction, everything else in our life is affected by that choice and that decision. And God, I pray that you would give us the courage and the boldness to make that decision today, tomorrow, and the next day, and the day after that we would learn to trust you more. We thank you for everything that you do for us, even when we don't see it. We love you, God. We thank you that you love us first. In your name I pray. Amen. Thanks for being here with us. See you next week. And then also don't forget about next in that front room if you have any questions.